All right, so Microsoft just released their earnings, and it's a bit of a mixed bag. They beat expectations for this past quarter, which is great, but their guidance for next quarter is a little below what analysts were hoping for.
Yeah, it's definitely a case of mixed signals for sure, and I think it has everybody kind of scratching their heads a little bit.
Yeah, definitely a head scratcher. So we're diving deep into their first quarter report for fiscal year 2025. And remember, their year kicks off in July.
Right.
And we've got all the information here, the press releases, financial statements, and of course, the juicy details from the earnings call summary.
That's always where the real story is. You can kind of read between the lines a little bit there.
Totally. So we'll unpack what fueled their success this past quarter, try to decode why they're anticipating a potential slowdown next quarter, and then see if we can connect the dots to get a glimpse of Microsoft's master plan.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, so first things first, Microsoft totally crushed it this past quarter. They blew past revenue and earnings expectations. Revenue jumped 16% to $65.6 billion,
Mm.
and net income climbed 11% to $24.7 billion.
Mm.
That's not just good, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, and what's really impressive, I think, is that this growth wasn't limited to just one part of their business. All their segments experienced growth, every single one, which is a testament to their diverse portfolio, you
Yeah,
know?
for sure. But there's one superstar we have to talk about, and that's the Intelligent Cloud segment, home to the mighty Azure. It totally stole the show with a 20% increase. Now, remember that quote from Satya Nadella we pulled from the earnings call summary?
Oh, yeah.
He said, and I quote, AI-driven transformation is changing work, work artifacts, and workflow across every role, function, and business process. We are expanding our opportunity and winning new customers as we help them apply our AI platforms and tools to drive new growth and operating leverage.
Mm.
This isn't just corporate jargon. We're actually seeing this AI-first strategy play out in these incredible numbers.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think Azure's performance is a prime example of that. They achieved a remarkable 33% revenue growth, and a big chunk of that, 12 percentage points to be exact, came directly from their AI services.
That's huge. It really highlights how Microsoft is riding the AI wave and turning it into a tidal wave of revenue. And they're not just keeping up with the competition, they're outpacing them. Azure's growth even overshadowed Google's cloud business, which came in at a mere 35% growth for the same period.
Yeah, it's a tight race at the top, and Microsoft is showing that they're a serious contender in the cloud arena, especially when it comes to their, AI-powered offerings.
Now let's dig into a strategic shift Microsoft is making with their segment reporting. They've expanded the productivity and business processes segment to include things like mobility and security services and some of the Windows revenue. So
Interesting.
it's not just selling individual products anymore. They're creating bundles that offer customers a more comprehensive suite of tools and services.
Right, yeah. So it's like they're building an ecosystem where everything works together seamlessly.
Exactly. And that seems to be resonating with customers. Revenue for this newly expanded segment grew a healthy 12% to $28.3 billion. This tells us that their core products like Microsoft 365, Dynamics, and LinkedIn are still going strong and contributing significantly to their bottom line.
Yeah, it's a classic example of how providing integrated solutions can lead to greater customer satisfaction and ultimately, stronger financial performance.
Speaking of strong performance, let's not forget about the world of gaming. The more personal computing segment saw a 17% revenue increase. Yeah. And we can largely thank the Activision acquisition for that boost.
That was a major power move in the gaming landscape, and I think we're really starting to see the impact of that.
For sure. Xbox content and services revenue skyrocketed by a mind-blowing 61%. So that's what I call leveling up.
Yeah.
So it's clear that the Activision acquisition has injected a massive dose of energy into their gaming segment. But as with any story, there's a flip side. While the overall segment performance is stellar, Windows OEM and devices revenue only saw a modest 2% growth. That's the not-so-shiny side of the coin.
Exactly. And this could be a signal of a potential slowdown in the PC market, Remember that Gartner report we were looking at? They're seeing a decline in PC shipments overall. So it makes sense that, this segment of Microsoft's business might be feeling the effects.
So we've got this interesting dynamic. The gaming segment is booming, but there are signs that the PC market might be cooling down. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out in the coming quarters.
Absolutely. And it's a good reminder that even within a successful company, different parts of the business can experience different trends and challenges.
All right, so we've covered the highlights, the impressive wins, the strategic shifts, and some potential areas of caution. But now it's time to tackle the elephant in the room. That's surprising guidance for next quarter. Microsoft is projecting revenue between $68.1 billion and $69.1 billion, which, while still substantial, points towards a slowdown in their growth trajectory. And this wasn't exactly what analysts were expecting.
No, it wasn't. And there's one major factor at play here that's affecting businesses around the world: supply chain issues.
Those pesky supply chain problems. It seems like they're the uninvited guest at every party these days.
It's a reality of the current business landscape, unfortunately. Microsoft is specifically facing delays in getting the vital data center infrastructure they need from their suppliers.
And this directly impacts their ability to meet the demand for their cloud services, especially Azure, which is experiencing such phenomenal growth.
It's just a classic case of supply and demand. They have the customers lining up, eager to embrace the power of the cloud and AI, but they don't have the physical infrastructure in place to support that demand at the pace they need.
It's like they're building a rocket ship to launch into the AI stratosphere, but they're waiting on a crucial shipment of rocket fuel. They have the vision and the ambition, but they're facing a very real bottleneck.
That's a great analogy. And it highlights how even tech giants like Microsoft, with all their resources and influence, aren't immune to these global supply chain challenges.
So now here's where things get really interesting. Despite this potential slowdown, Microsoft's capital expenditures have surged by a massive 50% year over year, reaching almost $15 billion.
Wow.
They're spending a fortune to fuel their future growth.
Yeah, this is a crucial point. It shows that they're not shying away from investing in their long-term vision, even in the face of these short-term hurdles.
And according to those savvy analysts at UBS, a big chunk of that spending is likely going towards beefing up their AI infrastructure. They're doubling down on their AI ambitions, even if it means navigating some choppy waters in the short term.
Yeah, it's a bold strategy, and it indicates that they see AI as the key to unlocking even greater growth and innovation in the years to come.
So let's pause here and do a quick recap. Microsoft had a killer first quarter. Their cloud business is exploding. They're making strategic moves to offer more integrated solutions, and they're pouring billions into their AI initiatives. But like a plot twist in a thriller movie, those pesky supply chain issues are throwing a wrench into their plans and creating a bit of uncertainty for next quarter.
It's a classic tale of triumph and tribulation. They're celebrating their victories while simultaneously preparing to battle some formidable foes.
Exactly. And what makes this even more intriguing is that this isn't just a Microsoft story. This is a story that's playing out across the entire tech landscape.
Right.
The demand for cloud services and AI is skyrocketing, but so are the challenges of building and maintaining the infrastructure needed to support that demand. It's a high-stakes game with no easy answers.
Yeah, it certainly is. And as we move forward, it'll be fascinating to see how Microsoft and other tech giants navigate this complex and rapidly evolving environment.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground already, but there's still so much more to unpack.
Yeah.
What do you say we take a quick breather and come back to dig even deeper into these earnings and what they mean for the future of Microsoft and the tech industry as a whole?
I'm ready for round two. Let's dive back in. You know, when I look at these numbers, what really jumps out at me are those supply chain constraints.
Yeah.
You know, they're kind of like a hidden undercurrent that could really have ripple effects across the whole tech sector.
Yeah, for sure. And it's so easy to get caught up in the excitement of all those impressive growth numbers. But these real-world limitations, they can't be ignored. It's almost like trying to build a digital empire on a foundation of sand.
Exactly.
Like if the infrastructure can't keep up with the demand, then the whole thing could start to wobble a bit.
And this is what it means for you, dear listener.
Yeah.
The cloud services you rely on, whether it's for work, entertainment, everyday life, could become more expensive or harder to access if these supply chain issues persist.
Yeah, it's a bit of a sobering thought for sure. We're so used to, technology advancing at breakneck speed. But this is a reminder that even the digital world is bound by these physical constraints.
Right. It's like hitting a speed bump on the information superhighway.
Oh yeah, big time.
So this brings us to a really crucial question. How will Microsoft respond to this? Will they double down on securing those supply chains? Maybe even, forge strategic partnerships or make some bold acquisitions to ensure they have the resources they need?
It's a chess game, isn't it? They got to anticipate their opponent's moves while also navigating these unexpected obstacles on the board. And the stakes are high. Competition for cloud dominance is fierce, and AI is definitely the new battleground.
For sure. And their next move could have a ripple effect throughout the whole industry.
So we've got these supply chain issues looming, but let's not forget about those other wild cards that Microsoft mentioned in their forward-looking statements. Things like, economic uncertainty, regulatory changes, and that ever-present threat of cybersecurity attacks.
Yeah, these are factors that could really impact any business, but they're especially relevant in the fast-paced world of tech. It's like navigating a minefield out there. You have to be constantly vigilant and adaptable to survive.
And don't forget about competition. Microsoft's not the only player in the cloud and AI game. Amazon Web Services, AWS, Google Cloud, those are formidable opponents. They're not going to just sit back and watch Microsoft dominate.
It's a three-way race at the top, and each company is bringing their own strengths and strategies to the table. And for you, as a consumer or a business owner, this intense competition is actually a good thing.
Oh, for sure.
It means more innovation, more choices, and hopefully more competitive pricing.
Competition is the spice of life, especially in the tech world.
Right. Keeps everyone on their toes,
Yeah.
pushes them to deliver the best possible products and services.
Now let's shift gears for a moment and talk about Microsoft's decision to restructure their segments. This move to expand the productivity and business processes segment might seem like an internal accounting detail, but it actually signals a broader shift in their strategy.
Right.
It's more than just moving numbers around on a spreadsheet. It's about recognizing how businesses are evolving and then adapting their offerings to meet those changing needs.
Exactly. So by bundling products and services together, things like Microsoft 365, Dynamics, and even elements of Windows, they're creating a more holistic and integrated experience for their customers.
So they're basically saying, hey, we know you don't need just individual software programs anymore. You need a complete toolkit that seamlessly connects all aspects of your work.
Right.
And for you, dear listener, this could mean greater efficiency, better collaboration, more streamlined workflow. It's like instead of juggling a bunch of separate applications, you have this unified platform that really simplifies your digital life. I mean, who wouldn't want that?
It's a win-win. Microsoft benefits from increased customer loyalty and revenue, and you benefit from a more integrated and productive work environment.
Okay, so we've explored the wins, the challenges, the strategic decisions that are shaping Microsoft's future. We've talked about their stellar performance, those pesky supply chain issues, and the broader industry trends that are really influencing their path forward. But now it's time to step back and ask ourselves, what does all this mean for you, our listener?
Yeah. How will these trends and challenges impact your life, your work, the technology you use every day?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? We've given you the pieces of the puzzle. Now it's your turn to kind of connect the dots and see what picture emerges. What stands out to you the most? What are you most curious about?
This is where the real deep dive begins.
Yeah.
Taking the information we've discussed and applying it to your own unique context.
So think about the role that technology plays in your life
Mm-hmm.
and how these trends might shape your future decisions. Will you be an early adopter of the latest AI-powered tools? Will you prioritize cybersecurity in your business operations?
And don't forget about the ethical implications of these technological advancements.
Yeah, that's right. As AI becomes more pervasive, we need to be mindful of its potential impact on society. The workforce, our individual lives.
Yeah,
It's a fascinating, complex landscape, and we're all navigating it together.
for sure.
So keep those brains buzzing, folks. We'll continue this conversation in the last part of our deep dive. We'll leave you with some final thoughts and resources to explore. Stay tuned. So we've talked about everything that went well for Microsoft this past quarter, but let's get back to that guidance for next quarter. What do you think it means for the big picture?
Well, I think it definitely exposed a vulnerability,
Yeah.
even for a company as powerful as Microsoft.
Yeah. And investors noticed too, right? I mean, remember their share price dipped after hours when they released that guidance. People were expecting them to keep up that incredible growth.
Yeah.
And when they hinted at a possible slowdown, well, it definitely spooked some people.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the hype, but this was a reality check. Those data centers are absolutely crucial to their cloud strategy, especially with all the investments they're making in AI.
It's like they built this massive engine for AI innovation, but they're missing a couple of key parts.
Right.
So how do you think Microsoft is going to adapt? What's their next move?
Well, one option is to double down on those supply chains. Maybe even, go so far as vertical integration.
Whoa, you're talking about them getting into manufacturing their own hardware.
It's a long shot, but it could be a game changer. They'd have so much more control and efficiency if they were making the components for their own cloud infrastructure.
I mean, they've already shown that they're willing to make some pretty big moves. Look at the Activision deal.
Exactly. And even with the supply chain issues, they're still pouring money into AI. They're betting big on it being the future.
And a lot of people think they're right. AI has the potential to revolutionize so many different industries.
Right.
Healthcare, manufacturing, education, you name it.
Okay.
Microsoft wants to be leading the charge.
But it's not just about the technology itself, right?
Right.
It's how it impacts people's lives, how we work. That's where things get really interesting and maybe a little scary.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as AI gets more sophisticated, we have to start thinking about the ethical implications. What's it going to mean for the workforce? Are there going to be unintended consequences?
Important questions to ask. But it's not all doom and gloom.
Yeah.
AI also has the potential to create new jobs, solve problems we could never solve before, improve our lives in so many ways.
It's a tool, right?
Exactly. And like any tool, it can be used for good or bad. We have to be careful.
So as we wrap up, what are some of the key things you hope our listeners take away from this deep dive?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that Microsoft's earnings are a window into what's happening in the tech world as a whole. We see the incredible growth, but also the challenges that everyone's facing. The demand is there for cloud services and AI, but the infrastructure can't keep up.
Yeah. And that creates opportunity, but also risk. Opportunity for innovation, new ideas, but also the risk of things becoming unstable, the risk of things happening that we didn't expect.
So for our listeners, it means stay informed, stay engaged, don't be afraid to ask questions. The future of tech is being written right now. Be a part of it.
Don't just accept things the way they are. Challenge the status quo. Ask the tough questions. What's the impact of AI going to be on jobs, on society? What about automation? What's the role of technology in our lives?
We have the power to shape this. Don't forget that.
Absolutely. And we've just scratched the surface here. We really encourage you to go deeper. Check out the earnings reports, those press releases, the full earnings call transcript. There's a lot to unpack there.
And most importantly, stay curious. Keep learning.
Never stop questioning. That's what the deep dive is all about.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And that's a wrap for today. Until next time, this is the Deep Dive signing off.